We're here talking fantasy football. And you know what we're talking about today? We're talking about wide receivers. And we're not talking about wide receivers we love. There's too much people hyping up these wide receivers. We want to talk about wide receivers we don't love. Wide receivers on our do not draft list. Wide receivers that when we see them in our draft, we run the other way. When I see them on there, I'm in wide receivers. I click running backs. I want to see where the running back's at because I see these guys and I'm like, fuck those guys. I'm grabbing a tight end. I'm grabbing a quarterback. Fuck this position.
Where's Trubisky at?
Yeah, where's Trubisky at? Where's Josh Rosen? I'll start that motherfucker over these wide receivers. These are wide receivers we don't like. The ADP is too high. It's not somebody we think you got to run away from these guys at all costs. It's our own personal opinion on these guys. So stay tuned if you want, and let's get into it, baby.
Let's do it.
Subscribe. Do not draft. First on our list is your guy. You hate this guy. You've traded for him year after year. We're talking about Odell Beckham Jr. You don't like this guy. Explain to the people why you are not drafting. I think this is kind of a lot of people are avoiding this guy, but just put a nail in the coffin. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I just don't like OBJ. I don't know. I don't care what round I'm in. I will not be drafting Odell Beckham Jr. I just think those days of 150 plus targets back with the Giants, those days are long gone. I mean, I was looking at some stats here. I mean, his first 3 years, he had 10 or more touchdowns, 3 straight years. After that, obviously, he's dealt with a lot of injuries. He gets traded from New York to the Cleveland Browns. But I mean, after that, he hasn't had more than 6 touchdowns in a single seast in the last 4 years. Like I said, obviously he's dealt with some injuries, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. But last year, obviously injuries again, so you can't really take that. But his first year with the Cleveland Browns, he finished as wide receiver 25 in full point PPR. That was back in 2019, and I just don't see him eclipsing that. Like I think that is his ceiling. Like, I don't think he gets past wide receiver 25. I mean, right now he's going in like the 5th, 6th round. Obviously the running backs get pretty gross when he gets that standpoint, but I just think there's certain receivers right there in that area I'd rather prefer targeting. I mean, you got Brandon Ayuk going in the 6th round. I know we love him. DJ Moore. I'm not the biggest DJ Moore guy, but I know Dre and Anthony, they love DJ Moore. You got T. Higgins in that area. And you even got some quarterbacks coming off the board around that same time too. Like I said, I just don't like it. It's on a run first team now. He goes from the, I don't want to say they're pass heavy with the Giants, but they were throwing the ball a ton over there. He goes from more of like a pass happier offense with the Giants to now he goes to a run first team. They want to run the ball with Chubb, they want to run the ball with Kareem Hunt, and then they want to utilize play action. They don't want Baker throwing the ball 40 times a game. They want him throwing the ball 25 to 30 times a game. Yeah. And in the last episode you were saying how you like Jarvis Landry because he's a PPR guy. So he's gonna get his targets.
And by the way, he's going way later.
Yeah.
He's going like 4 or 5 rounds later.
So yeah, I just don't like what Odell Beckham brings to the table. I mean, there's just I think those wide receiver one days are long gone. Definitely. And I just can't in my rankings, I have him ranked at like 32 right now. I just don't like the upside that he presents. I just don't see a scenario where he even cracks the top 20. I mean, he would need, a couple like huge plays, just, or his touchdowns need to get to 10 plus. And I just don't think Baker's the guy, especially with Stefanski in town now, where he's going to be forcing him the football. And I think they've learned when they try to force him the football, you ever hear that saying?
They lose games.
Yeah, you ever hear that saying where it's like, oh, if you have to fart and you force it, don't force it, because if you have to force it, it's shit. I think that's what it is. If you have to force the ball to him and you have to force, the ball to make him happy because he's a diva, then that's not going to help.
As we're saying that, he's throwing a fit on the highlights.
That's not how you win. You don't want to force the ball to him. You just want it to flow effortlessly. You want him to be like the play goes in because he's open, and this is the play design. Not like, oh, we have to get him the ball because if we don't, he's going to be unhappy. Maybe if he goes somewhere else and he can become like the true alpha wide receiver again, number 1 wide receiver again, then maybe. But yeah, I just don't like it. I mean, like I said, I know I joke around all the time, but I don't even think he's the best wide receiver on his team. I do genuinely believe that Jarvis Landry is a better like wide receiver as a whole than Odell Beckham Jr. But yeah, I I do not like Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah.
Do not draft Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah.
And then he's like one of those names too, where it's like
he just has a name.
You're never benching. Like if you draft Odell Beckham Jr., you're never benching him because he's Odell Beckham Jr. and he could have an Odell Beckham Jr. game where he puts up 25, 30 points.
Yeah. All he's gonna do is break your heart.
And so it's like you're never gonna sit him, and it's just so frustrating each and every week to have him and like watch him just be so up and down and inconsistent. So yeah. Don't draft Odell Beckham Jr. Thank us later.
Yeah, I like it. All right. Do not draft Jamarr Chase. What's his ADP real quick? Pull it up. Stat guy.
Let's see.
Jamarr Chase ADP.
Jamarr Chase is going.
I just want to know exactly where we're at before I roast this fool.
Before I roast this fool. He's going in the 6th round. So he's going around that Odell Beckham Jr. range.
Okay.
6th round, 7th round.
All right, I will say this. I'd rather have Odell over Jamarr Chase. I think there's too much hype. This is one of those college stats that everybody, like, too many people know that him and Joe Burrow played together at LSU.
Yeah.
And everyone who knows that, they think that they have the inside information. But guess what? Everybody watches LSU games. He was a fucking Heisman Trophy winner, Joe Burrow, that year. You know?
Yeah.
So everybody's on it. Everybody knows. So don't think, they played college together. It's going to be electric. There's a lot of guys. Tyler Boyd's still there. You still got T. Higgins. Joe Mixon will get some love. There's a lot. They didn't really work on that. I think they drafted one guy on the offensive line for the Bengals.
Who knows? They should have drafted more because they need to protect Joe Burrow.
They passed on. Yeah, I mean, Joe Burrow's knee blew up last year, and then they didn't draft anybody on the offensive line. I think it's going to be rough. I think Joe Burrow's really talented. I think he's going to do well. I really do. But I think the 6th round in redraft leagues, that is insane for me to grab a rookie wide receiver. Rookie wide receivers, usually it takes a while for them to get in. They don't. Only a couple. There's only some that really show up and do well, and it's usually not the guys we think it is. So if you're grabbing this guy in the 6th round, it's not gonna be what you think it is. It's not gonna be. I don't know. I can't believe the hype. If Jamarr Chase was going in the 10th, 12th round, I'm all about it.
Yeah.
6th round, much too early. I mean, that's all I really got on the Jamarr Chase.
I mean, for me, you obviously have Tyler Boyd, you got T. Higgins, and you got Jamarr Chase. I feel like Jamarr Chase is getting drafted before any of those out of all the three.
Which is crazy.
He's being drafted as the first Bengal off the board in majority of the leagues.
I would take T. Higgins over Jamarr Chase any day.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I mean, last year
I would take
you had T. Higgins have 108 targets. Tyler Boyd had 110 targets. And those were, half with Joe Burrow, half with, Brandon Allen and a couple of these other bum quarterbacks here. But I mean, like you see, you have these highlights going on right now on the YouTube channel, and it says Jamarr Chase lowlights. I mean, yesterday or what was it? I think it was Thursday maybe in the preseason game. He had 3 drops.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know Jamarr Chase.
He's young.
He's better than that.
He's going to do well, but it's just not this year. It's not the year to grab him in the 6th round.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'd rather go with T. Higgins. Give me the guy. Give me Tyler Boyd, who's the savvy veteran.
That's what I'm saying.
But I mean, like I said, you got guys like I'll even say it again. Brandon Ayuk, DJ Moore, Kenny Golladay, bro, Chase Claypool, Devontae Smith, Antonio Brown. Those are guys. Antonio Brown's actually going later, but those are just some names that are going. In terms of wide receiver wise, going around Jamarr Chase, and I'd rather take all those other guys over Jamarr Chase right 100%. There. I mean, it pretty much is Jamarr Chase and T. Higgins. They're pretty much back to back in terms of the rankings, and I agree with you, Mike. Give me T. Higgins all day.
Give me the guy that's proven. Give me the guy that's not a rookie. Give me the guy who actually look. The times they are a changing.
Yeah.
Fucking what's his name said it first. The fuck's it? Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan said it first. Times are changing, baby. Look. I know he had the college years, but Joe Burrow's moved on, bro. He's with fucking T. Higgins. That's his boy now. That's his fucking boy.
Boy T.
This is boy T. And listen, we're going to go on to my boy T's next do not draft list. We got Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin's really good, and he was kind of like a sleeper a couple years ago. Why is he on your do not draft list for wide receivers?
So the thing with Chris Godwin is like every time I've done a mock draft, I haven't picked Chris Godwin not one time, and he's been there multiple times. Obviously he finished as the wide receiver 2 a couple years ago, back with Jameis, when Jameis threw for 5,000 yards. This Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense is way better now, so I don't think they have to be. Tom Brady's not going to have to throw the ball for 5,000 yards. The
Jameis Winston days are gone.
Yeah, he obviously, Tom Brady obviously didn't throw the ball for 5,000 yards last year, obviously, as soon as they got AB too, that's Tom Brady's boy. And quote me if I'm wrong here, but I could just want to read something saying that since AB got there, or when AB got there, AB led the team in targets. It wasn't Mike Evans. It wasn't Chris Godwin. It was AB who led the team in targets.
Antonio Brown was going number 1 overall in some leagues a couple years ago.
Yeah. So I just don't like, Chris Godwin where he's going. He's going in like the 4th round. I mean, when I was doing my rankings, I felt bad, but I had him outside of my top 20. I think I had him at like 22, and I think I left him at 22 because I just felt bad. I felt like how low am I really going to move this guy down? Like, how far am I going to move him down? Because
I don't know if
I just don't see the upside that he presented that 1 year with Jameis Winston. I mean, obviously Mike Evans is going to be like the go-to red zone threat. We saw that last year. I mean, when they got to the red zone, Mike Evans, not a ton of targets, not a ton of yards, but Brady, when they got in close to the red zone, he was looking for Mike Evans. I mean, obviously you have Gronk, who's another red zone weapon, who could just sneak out of the off the line of scrimmage, for a little touchdown pass. And then you do have AB, who was getting, hyper targeted once he got there, who is Tom Brady's boy. You have Gio Bernard now, who's, going to be, quote unquote, the James White of this offense for them. Since Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette couldn't catch a football, if you fucking gave them some stick of glue on their hands. So I just don't see, where I just don't see a scenario where Chris Godwin's getting you a ton of targets. Obviously he had 9 touchdowns a couple years ago. It's 7 last year, so he does have kind of a nose for the end zone, and 7 a couple years before then. But I just don't see the upside here, and I really did have a problem, or I was struggling to put him inside my top 20 wide receivers,
and that's rough if you're in a situation where you're not putting. I mean you just have receivers like Amari Cooper's in that range. I'd rather have Amari Cooper, to be honest, especially with Dak if he can stay healthy. I mean, really? we talked about Cooper Kupp, and Robert Woods. We talked about Cooper Kupp and the players that we do like to draft. Obviously Robert Woods, we like him as well. You have Deontay Johnson, who's going to see 140 targets probably. I mean, he's kind of emerged as the guy there. He's the number 1 in Pittsburgh for sure.
So you just have receivers like that in that area that I just would prefer over where Chris Godwin's going. I mean, he's even going over like Julio Jones in some drafts, and it's like, give me Julio Jones all day over Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
So I just don't like it. Like I said, I've been having a hard time trying to justify putting him in my top 20. I don't think he finishes in the top 20 wide receivers.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Speaking of, you just spoke on Julio Jones. I'm going to speak on AJ Brown, because Julio Jones is on the same team as AJ Brown now, and you're going to say, do not draft AJ Brown. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
But do you know why I'm saying it?
Educate us.
Educate you. Okay. AJ Brown, it's not a terrible pick. I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's going to lose you your league if you pick up this guy. But I would be cautious with picking up AJ Brown, just because I think he's the 1 there. But I don't think Julio Jones is the 2 in Tennessee. I think Julio Jones is we got a 1A, 1B situation between Julio Jones and AJ Brown. And I think that if you're going to grab AJ Brown in the 2nd round, for me, his ADP is 22 overall. So I would say he's gonna go. So you probably get a running back, then a receiver, which is, I just don't like the idea of having AJ Brown as my wide receiver 1 when I can get the 1B on that same team with Julio Jones in the 4th or 5th round. That's kind of like my biggest argument. I think it's going to be neck and neck between AJ Brown and Julio Jones on targets and everything. Obviously, Corey Davis is gone. I just really think, they lost Jonnu Smith goes to the Patriots. I think there's going to be a lot of targets for both of these guys, but I really don't think I think it's going to be a 1A, 1B situation with those two. I can't imagine. So that's my point. I just think that you can get better value with Julio Jones. You're basically getting a 1B for way low of a price. I think Julio Jones is going about in the 5th round, 4th round sometimes. Probably 4th round is more accurate.
Yeah, like 4th round.
So, I think if you can get the 1B as a wide receiver 2 versus the 1A for a wide receiver 1, that's where I'm at on the whole situation.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing that really boosted A.J. Brown last year was 11 receiving touchdowns.
He got lucky. There were so many games where you have A.J. I mean, that's how Julio Jones is too.
Yeah.
Julio Jones is not with the touchdowns, but Julio Jones is like, one big play. That's a lot of times he's like that.
Yeah. He gets 11 receiving touchdowns, which was, that's up there. I mean, I don't know. I think Thielen had 14, but I can't remember who had more than, who's, getting 10 plus receiving touchdowns is a lot. That's a lot of touchdowns. But even then, with 11 receiving touchdowns, he only finished as wide receiver 14, A.J. Brown. So I just don't see where you like you said, you do have him like being ranked in the top 10. And it is hard for me to even justify that because you said like he had 11 receiving touchdowns last year, 70 receptions, 1,075 receiving yards, and he finished as the wide receiver 14. So it's like, what more does he need to get?
Yeah.
Maybe the receptions and the yards go up, but I mean, 11 receiving touchdowns is probably not going to be the same. Especially when you have Corey Davis who only got 5 receiving touchdowns. I agree with you. I think this will be more closer. I think it'll be like 8 touchdowns for A.J. Brown and then an 8 or 9 for Julio Jones.
Yeah, I just think that. I mean, he's at. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I was about to say something, but I spaced out. I was watching these highlights. And if you want to watch the highlights, go ahead and check out our YouTube channel because those highlights are live on our YouTube channel.
Yeah. But I agree with. Like I said, I mean, I feel like that might have been his. I don't want to say his ceiling, but I mean, you get 11 touchdowns, and you're wide receiver 14. It's like how much better does he have to get to crack the top 10? Which I feel like he's being drafted inside the top 10 overall wide receivers right now. And to your argument, hey, give me Julio Jones, who's going 2 rounds later in the 4th round, who's going to probably put up similar production.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like you sign like one of the top receivers in the league. Arguably, Julio Jones is. I know he's older, but he's still amazing.
Yeah.
You sign that guy, and then he finishes a wide receiver 14, and he's getting drafted in the top 10 of wide receivers. I don't understand. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, you got A.J. Brown right now as wide receiver 7. Like I said,
so
it means he has to get. He finished as wide receiver 14 last year. He's ranked wide receiver 7 right now on Fantasy Pros.
It's just too high.
You have Julio Jones, who's ranked at wide receiver 19. Like, give me wide receiver 19 because he could, in Julio Jones, who could put up similar production to A.J. Brown possibly.
Yeah, I know saying A.J. Brown don't draft him it might be a hot take to some people, but and I think A.J. Brown has better years ahead of him. I can't do the math with Julio Jones.
You just don't like that draft price, is what you're saying.
Yeah, like I can't do the math of Julio Jones being
there.
What
round would you feel comfortable taking A.J. Brown?
Tail end of probably if I could get him as like in the 3rd round, but it's not going to ever happen.
So, you're not going to because, he's probably going in the 2nd round.
So, it's like, don't draft him because he's not going to land. Yeah. If you're in the tail end of the 3rd round, like if you're like, okay, let's say 308, I would take him at the 308, 309.
Yeah.
If he's there, yeah, totally. Because I'll probably end up getting a receiver. But if I have 2 running backs and then he becomes my wide receiver 1, okay, maybe I can make the argument. But yeah, I don't like the idea of him being my wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go into. I mean, he's not a bad wide receiver 1. It's just there's better options. I think that's all. Let's go into your do not draft list. We got Will Fuller.
Yeah, so I'm not. We have Will Fuller up here on the screen on the YouTube channel. I'm not drafting Will Fuller. I'm not drafting any Dolphins wide receiver, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe as a Dolphins fan, maybe I'll take a shot on Devontae Parker because I feel like he's being the the last Dolphin wide receiver being drafted. I think he's like wide receiver 50 right now. So, I mean, in the later rounds, maybe I'll take a shot on Devontae Parker. But I think I'm just going to avoid all these Dolphin wide receivers as a whole. I mean, I'm really high on Tua. I think Tua is primed for a breakout season.
I was curious what that means for Tua because of that.
I just think what it is there's just so many mouths to feed and Tua is going to be, kind of like we were saying with Odell Beckham, where you're forcing it to him. That's not how the offense is going to run efficiently. It's making the right read, making the right play, finding the open receiver. And I think Miami's got a ton of weapons. They go out and they get Will Fuller in free agency. They do have Devontae Parker. They draft Jalen Waddle. They reunite him with Tua, who they're teammates at Alabama. You got Mike Gesicki, a talented wide receiver who's that guy catches everything. And then you got a couple good running backs out of the backfield, Savon Ahmed and Myles Gaskin can catch the ball as well. So I just think that Tua is going to be spreading the ball around evenly to everybody. That it's not going to be like one guy's getting 10 plus targets consistently or eight targets consistently every single game. I think, we could see a Will Fuller game one week, and then next week we could see a Devontae Parker game. And then next week it's Gesicki, and then next week it's Devontae Parker again. The next week it's Jalen Waddle. I just think it's going to be...
There's too many question marks.
Too many, it just...
I agree.
Not enough consistency, I think, for these players on a week-to-week basis. Like I said, what I think, who I love it for is Tua. I mean, I do think Tua is primed for a breakout season. I do think Tua has, some sneaky back-end quarterback one possibilities. He was my bold prediction was that he finishes a top 10 quarterback, and I was watching the preseason game, and I know it's preseason, but I mean, the guy was at one point 12 for 12 with 150 yards and a touchdown. So, he just looked good, and that wasn't even with Devontae Parker and Will Fuller on the field. So I just don't think it's going to be too consistent, these Dolphin wide receivers for you each and every week. I think they're going to be two boom or bust. Tua, give me Tua all day. But as far as these wide receivers and feeling confident each and every week, throwing them in my lineup and being able to rely on them, I feel like they're going to be boom or bust.
I don't know how you did it, but you hyped up Tua and then shit on the Dolphins wide receivers. And I like the argument.
Yeah.
I don't know how you did that.
Draft Tua.
I couldn't agree more. For me, there's a lot of variables. I think I've grabbed maybe, like you said, I grabbed Parker in the tail end of some leagues, but that's about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go on to my last guy. We got Marquise Brown, ADP doctor. Where am I at on Marquise Brown? I'll tell you. Boop, 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 boop. I'm just trying to be thorough here. Before
Marquise Brown is going as wide receiver 51.
Okay, so that's the thing is Marquise Brown. That's pretty late, actually. Now I'm thinking about it, but the thing is I will just go based off of trying to own this guy.
People are trying to make Marquise Brown a thing, and they're just they keep trying to make him a thing.
Listen,
and it's
don't.
He's just not a thing. He's just not a thing.
I think he could be. If he was on a different team. He's on the Baltimore Ravens. This team that fucking is Lamar Jackson can't throw it. I don't know. Maybe he should go left-handed. I think he might be left-handed. He doesn't know. Because he can't, it's just being on the Ravens, none of these receivers, we see year after year, it's like Devin Duvernay. We're like, that guy's dope, but he's on the Ravens, trash. If we see Rashard Bateman this year, it's dope, but, Lamar Jackson's not going to throw you the ball. So that's the thing is Marquise Brown is too dependent on these big runs. He's too dependent on having touchdown upside. I think he's fast. I think he's quick, but he's also tiny. He's 5'4". I don't know exactly how high.
Yeah, he's not very big at all.
He's very small. He's very quick, but he's very small. He even said in an interview that it doesn't see himself as a wide receiver one. So if you're over here thinking, oh, but he's a number one on the team, Marquise Brown himself doesn't even think that. So,
yeah.
Obviously, as a Steelers fan, I had to shit on a Ravens player a little bit. I think I did a sufficient job.
Yeah, I don't like Marquise Brown.
Yeah.
He's too boomer bust. I mean, how many games does he get you 2 catches for 15 yards and that's it? And you're just Sick. Yeah.
You're like, I could have picked up fucking Paris.
Like you said, even you said Rashad Bateman. Like I think Rashad Bateman's talented rookie wide receiver out of Minnesota, but I want nothing to do with Rashad Bateman because he's tied to Lamar Jackson.
Exactly. Yeah. So, pick up Zach Pascal on the waiver wire that week if you're thinking about playing Marquise Brown. If you want two catches for 15
in that
yards.
range, you got fucking Darnell Mooney right next to him.
Exactly.
That was the guy you liked. You got Russell Gage. In those late rounds, pick him up. Even Marvin Jones, a guy that we talked about on our draft list. Those guys are going around that same area. So, yeah, I'd rather have all those guys over Hollywood Brown. There's a 0% chance I will have Hollywood Brown on any one of my teams.
Yeah,
0% chance.
I'm totally with you. Yeah, I think that's it for our do not draft list for wide receivers. Excuse me. So if you found this information helpful for you at all, go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube. Leave us a review on the Apple Podcast app. Like and comment on this video. If you disagree with us, tell us. I'm curious. What's your position? Tell me why. Tell me why we're wrong. I'm down to get into a nice little argument on the YouTube comments. I'm not above that, okay? So yeah, let us know in the comments, all that good stuff. We got Instagram, Twitter. If you need help with your fantasy team, just go ahead and send us a message or tag us, post something and tag us in it.
Yeah. And the next one we'll do our running backs draft list and our running backs do not draft list.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully, clicking this video or listening to this podcast was helpful for you. And we'll see you next time.